James, what do you think of our call with Charles today?
No, it was awesome. It's always awesome when you have Charles Floate on the podcast. He's always dropping knowledge bombs. But for anyone listening, we touched on obviously the most popular thing that's going around at the moment, leaked Yandex code. So that was one of the things we jumped into. We also jumped into kind of what we're going to before that, but leaked Yandex code was a big one. And then I think the podcast kind of went in a different direction than we thought it would. And we ended up going down the full e-commerce or physical brick and mortar store business and how Charles kind of runs his thing there. I know you're quite interested in that.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of directed it completely that way. I had so many questions because when I tried to run stuff produced in the UK, it just didn't make sense. So I was like so curious how he was able to make it work. Yeah, I'm not sure if this will be great for our audience. I'm not sure all of them are in e-com, but we still touched on a lot of SEO. Yeah.
Even if you're not, we did go into the recent Google updates and Charles broke that down for us and a lot of the stuff with the link building and all that. So after the talk about all the physical product stuff and econ things there, we dive into a lot of Google as well. But if you're looking to analyze your sites anyway through whatever happened in the Google update, you need to use a certain special SEO tool, Jackie.
Dude, hrefs.com, sponsor for the video. Guys, go sign up for it. Links in the bio. If you're on any other podcast software, just go on YouTube. Stop listening on Spotify. We need more views on YouTube. We're cutting clips of our podcast there. It's popping. It's popping. Each one has a couple thousand views. See the YouTube strategies we're utilizing right now for the short form content. See what we're trying to do on YouTube so you can do it yourself. Just go on our most recent video. Go smash the thumbs up button. Go subscribe and the bell icon because I like getting that notification on my mobile phone so I can go like my own video. You know, it's a good notification to get. All right. That's about it from my side. Mm-hmm. What's good, everyone? It's Jackie Chow.
And this is James DeLacy.
And you're listening to This Week in Digital Marketing. All right, guys, welcome to This Week in Digital Marketing. I'm Jackie Chow. Joined with me is James DeLacy, and we have a special guest today. His name's the ever so controversial Charles Floate. How's it going?
It's going very good, thank you. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, why don't you give yourself give a quick intro for the audience? I'm sure most people know who you are, but when did you start SEO? How did you get into the space, and what are you up to now?
Yeah, so I started doing SEO about 15 years ago. I've been doing SEO mostly for my family business and affiliate and CPA portfolio for the majority of that time. I've also been doing consultancy, auditing, link building, all sorts of stuff, and then just general experimentation is what I like to do, and where I find the most fun is just testing theories and coming up with stuff right for SEO. I got started because I kind of already knew what SEO was, but I never actually did any SEO until maybe a year or two after figuring it all out. I ran a load of YouTube channels with some guys online when I was in my early teens, and they ended up doing quite well. We got some quite big channels under our network when MCNs on the YouTube were quite big back in the day. We ended up I converted that when I met another guy that I met on a gaming and hacking forum into a made for AdSense kind of business. So we were doing AdSense on YouTube, and we kind of realized that, hey, actually there's a lot of niches and stuff, and there's a lot of niche sites that we could be building that are specifically made for AdSense websites. And MFA, made for AdSense, was a massive kind of trend at the time as well. And back in those days, you could get $3 a click for like really weird niches like Harry Potter niches and things like that, right? And like back in these days and stuff, you'd be happy to get 30 cents a click and stuff in earnings for AdSense, right? So back in those days, it was super easy. We used to scale out kind of content and sites and all these kind of random niches, really small sites, get them earning on AdSense, and then just flip them. And I met Todd Foster, that is, on this forum, and started doing that with him. And he taught me so much about SEO and so much about black hat marketing and so much about like automated software and automation and outsourcing, PBNs, all of that kind of stuff. So I owe a lot of my initial early success to Todd. And then once we'd kind of started growing all of that kind of stuff, we kind of started splitting our own ways, but we always stuck to the gaming niche. So I kind of started wanting to do other projects where we were doing, financial markets, and crypto started becoming quite big and stuff because I was quite an early adopter of crypto. And then we started creating these private gaming servers for RuneScape and for a couple of the games and stuff. And in the end, we ended up ranking number 2 for RuneScape itself for the actual term. And we were getting like 100,000 user signups in our private server a week for ranking number 2 for them. And then in the end, Jagex, who are the own. Yeah, in the end, the owners of RuneScape, Jagex, were getting really annoyed with us because we were stealing all of their user signups. And at the time, we actually offered RuneScape Classic, which they didn't offer, and they now offer. So we kind of offered what they now offer as a premium service before they did. And as a result, they went. I think when they decided they were going to launch their own version of it, they came after all of the private servers, and especially came after us because obviously we were number 2 in Google. For their own brand name and stuff. So I had lawyers at my door when I was like 14, and they're like banging on my door, like trying to serve me legal papers and stuff. And my mom was like, "Charlie!" like screaming down, "What have you done?" Like, well, this kind of stuff. You got 6 lawyers at the door screaming problems, this sort of thing. And so I ended up having to like come down the stairs, and they're like, "You're the person we're serving," and they're like trying to hand me legal documents and stuff. And my mom's like, "You can't hand him legal documents; he's a minor." And stuff. So it just ended up getting like way out of hand. We had to basically essentially shut down all the servers and stuff so that Jagex wouldn't sue my parents and things and stuff. So it got way further than I had anticipated. But the server itself is amazing, right? We had about 500,000 users or something at its peak. And we were having to spend 8-10K a month on DDoS protected servers and stuff. So that's how I really got started into SEO. And from there, I kind of, when we had to shut down most of our private servers and stuff because we were going to get sued, I kind of transitioned into gaming forums and kind of other apps and stuff like that, and things and niche websites and things like that.
Sick, man. Yo, do you play RuneScape still? I used to be a huge RuneScape guy.
Yeah, I know. I wish I had the time, man. Like I play League of Legends maybe like once a week or 2 times a week or something. But that's about it. Yeah.
Nice. League isn't good for you, man. It's a terrible place. Terrible place. Yeah. No, I'm quick shout out to RuneScape, guys. If there's any listeners who's like 99 rune crafting, I want to hire you for our agency. So we got to get those people in, man. They're built different. Yeah, thanks for the intro. Interesting come up, actually. You started very young. I think today I wanted to really talk about, everyone wants to talk about the Yandex code. I want to get your thoughts on that, as well as like the recent Google updates. I saw you put out a video, so maybe you could self-promo there real quick, and then a bit of ORM, because I've had some issues with ORM in the past with previous clients, and maybe you can comment on that. But yeah, I think first off, we typically start off the pod by like just talking about what we're up to this week. Charles, what are you working on this week? Because you just came back from vacation, right?
Yeah, so I think I've been back for like 2.5 weeks or so now. But I took like 5 or 6 weeks off over the holidays just to take like some proper time off. Because last year I was working like crazy, and then at the start of this year, again, I've started just doing like 14-hour days and things, which is not good for your mental health or your physical health and stuff, right? But in general, I'm trying to transition and move away from Gumroad, because Gumroad has, I've been a top 1% seller or even top 0.1% seller or something like Gumroad for like the last 3 or 4 years now. And they set a tier list for your pricing so that you pay a certain amount of fees depending on your tier list within Gumroad. And they're changing all that. So they're removing all this tier list so that your earned levels of pricing and stuff is gone. And you just pay a flat 10% fee, which is ridiculous for the kind of modern era and stuff. And with the payment processes and stuff in the world anyway, I would rather move to my own platform. So I'm currently building my own platform. I've been doing loads of consultancy, been doing loads of audits, been improving my own affiliate sites and CPA sites, analysing the algo updates and analysing the Yandex ranking factors. So those are the main things I've been doing this week.
Nice, man. Seems like a lot on your plate, actually. How do you juggle all that? You just straight hours?
Yeah, generally just grind set, right? Like putting in a lot of hours. I generally can get a lot done if I can sit down and focus for an hour or two. I've actually massively recommend something which I have always got my notes there. Deep Work by Cal Newton. I read this book; it's like my Bible at the moment. I've been using it over the holidays and stuff. Just been trying to get into that deep work focused zone mode. And it allows me to get so much done in an incredible amount of time. I custom did a 10-page SEO audit the other day in like an hour and a half. It was 3,000 words or so. And like I audited the entire website, wrote the entire audit, did everything in an hour and a half. So I was really, really happy with my results, right, when I actually can get into this deep work mode.
What's the premise of the deep work? How do you get in there?
So there's actually several premises to it. The very first one is this whole concept of the tower by Carl Sagan, which essentially Carl would go and lock himself in a tower in the middle of like the woods in Germany or it might be Switzerland actually, for long stints at a time. And like he wouldn't even speak to his family or anything. Like if people died and things, he would be contactable and stuff, right? It would be pretty intense. But it would allow him to create amazing pieces of work. He would write entire books in like 3 weeks. It was just amazing amounts of level of production. I think in 1 year he produced like 8 books or something by just being locked in a tower in this room. So that would be like the first concept. And then there's multiple other concepts based on essentially just creating your environment around you so that you can produce as much work, and then removing all of these digital distractions and removing all of these additional stuff. So one of the things, for example, would be I got one of the covers on my phone so that when I put my phone down, it doesn't show me my screen, so that I don't get any notifications on my screen, so that I don't get distracted by my phone screen. So that would be like one example of how you kind of create this deep focus work environment.
That's solid. I typically go into deep work like daily, and the girlfriend absolutely hates it. I don't know how you handle that. I don't know. You have a partner, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you guys just not talk? Because like when I go into deep work, it's like 8 to 10 hours, and then it's like I can't talk to anyone, and I'm pretty much like a wall. I don't know how you deal with that. It's honestly, guys, I need help. I'm like, it's putting a real strain on my relationship, man.
I fully understand that. My girlfriend hates it as well. That being said, I try not to do the 8 or 10 hour shifts all in one go. So I'll try and do like 2 hours, and then I'll come down and spend like 5 minutes with that, stuff like that, just to kind of give there some balance. But it's also, I think, good for your focus and good for your head in general, because sometimes you kind of get there is some levels of too deep, right? Where you can get too focused on the one specific project and you kind of overlook some things. And that is very true for things like when I'm creating beginner level content. Right, I get so focused in me understanding everything that it kind of you overlook that actually I'm trying to teach new people stuff, and that they won't understand everything that I'm saying. And that's like a good example of maybe going too deep into the rabbit hole. But I like I said, I try to just do 2 hours at a time or so, and then take a break, and then come back and do another 2 hours, and then take a break and stuff like that. But in general, I'll just tell her, hey, look, I've got to go and create this video. It's going to take me an hour. I'm going to go and create this audit for an hour, etc., etc. One of the best things is noise cancelling headphones. Like just removing all the outside distraction and outside noise and stuff. A car could crash outside and I couldn't hear it. So it's perfect for just creating that deep work focus mode as well.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, my girlfriend would probably want a word with you, and she'll hate that. But yeah, James, what are you up to this week?
So this week, I quite an expired domain. What was it? Last week, and redirecting that to my site. So that's all done. Got a press release for that too. So I'm waiting for that to come through. I had another thing that I was doing. Oh, we just started collaborating with a fitness subscription box. So they're going to basically put our membership in there and print a bunch of t-shirts for us and send them out to their 1,500 members and an email to their 30,000 subscribers. So that should hopefully boost the business too in a couple of months. And then outside of that, pretty much just creating content, YouTube, blogs, all the good stuff. I had something else that from our call on the on the advice circle, we talked about me potentially putting ads on my site. I signed up for Mediavine with one of my sites, and I might do it, man. Not on both, just on one.
No, you should.
And
You
then on
should.
the
I've
other
already-
small ones, yeah.
Yeah, I've ran the numbers already. The uplift you get in revenue on Mediavine ads definitely makes sense on the the hit you take on affiliate commissions. At least in
I just
the
won't run it
home
on the
space.
affiliate pages anyway.
You're not going to run it on the affiliate pages, only informational?
Nah. Yeah, just what's your take on that, Charles?
Yeah, I somewhat agree with making sure that you get the more affiliate concentrated clicks, right? In general, when we do the comparisons of pages, your RPM will never ever beat the commission rate that you'll be able to get, right? Especially if you're sending people through to really high conversion rate landing pages. Even things like Amazon gets like 60% conversion rate on clicks, right, from affiliate clicks. In general, if you're making like 50 cents a click from your site and you're making $5-10 commission, and that's a low end affiliate commission, right? Then it's just going to be way more sense to kind of concentrate those clicks into the right areas. And a lot of the time, ads take away too much of the ability to concentrate those clicks, because they have got built-in ad things like download this or click here or that kind of stuff, right? So it takes away from your buttons, which is the entire point of affiliate stuff, right? So I do somewhat agree. I just also have an issue with the fact that there's like not consistency across the website, with not every page having ads and that kind of stuff. And Google hates inconsistencies and things, especially in like code level stuff and code level discrepancies and things. So I have this internal debate, right, where it's bad for the inconsistencies in terms of Google, and it does somewhat affect your SEO. And even just adding ads to the site can affect your SEO. And there's been this massive argument with Ezoic's CMO and Ezoic's CEO on Twitter saying that if you add Ezoic to your site, it will it will decrease the loading time of your site, right? If you add Ezoic to your site. But I've always said to them, how does it make sense if you are adding requests to your site that it will make your site faster? That makes zero
All about
sense
leap,
to
bro.
me
It's all about
whatsoever.
leap.
Exactly, right? But this is my point, right? If you're adding requests and stuff, then there's basically no way that you're going to increase the load time of your site. So I would always suggest to do tests, right? And the fact that you have 2 domains might even be more tests to the fact that you could try different networks as well. So like test Ezoic, test Mediavine, test AdThrive, test them all. Because in general, I found that Mediavine, yes, it is the top dog for RPMs and stuff, but in some niches, AdThrive beats it, and in other niches, Ezoic tends to beat it. Ezoic less so, and it's generally AdThrive versus Mediavine for me anyway.
Do you find it impacts email signups at all? I don't know if that's something you've tested.
Not really, but again, I use a lot of lead magnets and stuff for my email signups, and I generally don't use things like pop-ups and stuff. So we don't get a massive amount of email lead gen anyway. The stuff that we do get is just supplementary to the monetization of the site, and it's mostly so that when I end up flipping the site, I can get money for the emails on top of the site, so that if they didn't click an ad or an affiliate link, I still get revenue from them, right? So just about adding those additional monetization options for the site.
Interesting. Nice. Yeah, I think from my side, this week I had to write a bunch of fucking threads on Twitter. That was annoying. That took way too long. Did the revenue update. I'm down bad, guys. If you're listening, go onto YouTube, just go like the video. Pay respects that way. I had a tough month.
Yeah, Jackie told me he's eating instant noodles now after still making in the high 5 figures a month. So
yeah, it's definitely a tough month. But yeah, I think this week was focusing on my main goals for 2023, which is spin out the agency. That's going well. Our pipeline is hella juicy right now. It was just reaching out to the existing network because I wasn't focused on the agency in the past. I think our pipeline right now is at like 35K MRR, so pretty juicy. We can probably have a solid close rate, but we'll see. We signed our first client this month. It was a law firm based out of Canada. That should be 5K a month type of deal. Pretty hyped for that. And then, yeah, I think it's continuing to meet new people around Thailand. I think I met a couple people in Phuket. That was great. And yeah, I'll probably meet up with some people in Bangkok and Chiang Mai as well. Charles, we gotta link up soon. And
yeah, for sure.
Besides that, that's pretty much it. The Facebook and Twitter ads I'm running right now, is not going well. So the Twitter ads completely stopped working. I spoke to Gail about this in his thread because he started running Twitter ads, and he said his costs are 3 times lower than Facebook. But I'm having trouble scaling Twitter ads. So it's currently at like a email sign up of $10 per sign up, whereas when I first started, it was about $3 per sign up, and it was like high quality leads. So yeah, interested to see what's going to happen. But Facebook right now is at like $4, so might just try to keep running that. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my side. Charles, what would you make of the Yandex code?
Yeah, so it was quite interesting, to be honest. It kind of just reinforced some of my already existing beliefs and things inside of it. I will say, though, that I am not so confident that Google is using similar code, right? Because some of the stuff that is in this Yandex leak is not very advanced. Like, realistically, a lot of it is like yes/no statements for a search engine, which does not seem the pinnacle of search engine technology, let's say. So in my opinion, a lot of people seem to be skipping over one of the major elements of this kind of search engine technology landscape, which is the fact that Google has a tech monopoly on search engine patterns and things, right? So a lot of technology that Yandex could utilize, they just can't because it's in Google's patents. So if they wanted to utilize it for any other market outside of Russia, they wouldn't be able to because it's using Google's technology. And as such, Google has got all of this additional technology that nobody else really can utilize, and you can't really reverse engineer. So you can reverse engineer it, just not outside of Google itself, right? That, like I did say, though, there is some parts of the Yandex algorithm and leak that I do think are very relative to Google's own stuff. And there have been a lot of people coming out that have been saying that a lot of the publishers behind the code, so the people who contributed to the engineering team that created their code that is being leaked, a lot of those people are ex-Googlers themselves. So they have worked at Google previously, and Yandex has kind of poached them or picked them up as they've been laid off and things like that. So there's obviously going to be some level of overlap, right? I would just say that it still does seem to me that the technology is very far behind Google, and that it wouldn't be nowhere near kind of 100% overlap. That being said, there is some level of overlap. I was really intrigued specifically by the document concepts of them comparing the user signals and them also comparing the content. I'm trying to remember what it was. I might have to quickly check on my phone because there's so many specific documents and stuff. But we went through a load of stuff on here.
Was there any main takeaways? Yeah, for the
so the main takeaway for me was. Yeah, so the main takeaway was that they do use user signals, basically. So from that was what I was just double checking to make sure that I wasn't doing things. Because again, it only came up 2 days ago. I haven't been able to go through the whole lot of it, and I've only looked at overlaying stuff, overview stuff. They do seemingly correlate user signals with the site. So they try to use user signals in correlating what the algorithm already thinks, which is actually really interesting, right? Instead of using user signals as a direct signal to kind of impact the stuff, they correlate it versus what the algorithm already has analyzed. So they use it as kind of a backup point for the algorithm's analysis already, which I think is really interesting. And I think that's probably what Google is doing as well. Instead of using it as direct signals, they're using it more comparatively. So they're using it comparatively against what they've already deemed in Google, and it's just kind of more evidence for them to either say yes or no for that algorithm. So there is a lot of interesting stuff, and I think over the next couple of weeks, once people start to take some serious deep dives into it, and especially once kind of the Cyrillic Russian reading and speaking community can come in, analyze it, and then convert it into proper English instead of all these people just translating it with Google translating API and then trying to understand if it makes sense 100% and things like that. So I think it'll make a lot more sense once we have got people who can actually fully understand and read the code, and then they can translate it for us. But in general, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how much it does correlate with Google in the next couple of months and things.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see. There's like a couple unsighted data points floating around saying like 70% of all Yandex searches are like the same as Google or something like that, or 70% of Google searches are the same as Yandex. I'm pretty sure that's unsighted and it's just random, right? I'm pretty sure that's not true.
Yeah,
I guess we'll never
would
know.
make zero sense considering, one's in Russia and one's in the US, right? I don't think Russian people and the US people are generally searching for similar topics, right?
Yeah. I think I wish someone from Google could just come out and say something about this, but they won't, because that's probably really
I'm guessing they've been told specifically they're not allowed to, right? There's a lot of stuff. In fact, it's quite interesting to see what the kind of landscape will look like for the Google talking to the SEO community and the SEO industry, because Gary Illis was one of the people that got laid off as part of the layoffs.
Oh, he got laid off?
He was part of the Switzerland layoffs, yeah. So he announced on LinkedIn. And that will be, again, he was one of the three that I kind of always referred to, which was John Mueller, Gary Illis, and Matt Cutts, right? Those are the three guys. And then you also have Danny Sullivan, who's kind of come in a bit later down the line and kind of replaced Matt Cutts essentially now. But those have always been the kind of three go-to guys. And now obviously you've got rid of Gary, who's massive. And I met Gary several times at conferences and stuff, and he was always very down to, openly discuss things there, maybe not so much online, but in person, a lot more so.
Yeah. All right. Yo, I wanted to ask you, because we've never spoken before, but you posted like a Twitter thread about your revenue breakdowns. I noticed a lot of it is from audits and consultancy. Have you, because recently, and I also noticed you have like multiple revenue streams similar to me, but our previous guest, Tom, who we just came out with a pod, but one of the things he said was like, I'm pretty sure he thinks I can 10x any of the business I focus on. Have you given that any thought? And I've been thinking about that a lot recently, is like, why don't I focus on one thing and just go deep dive? But I see it personally as diversification, and it seems like you are as well. But like, what do you think? You have so many sources of revenue, but it seems like you're heavy on the consultancy side, which is essentially, does that mean it's like an hourly rate? Do you charge hourly? Is that how it goes? Because you're trading time for money, while it's a lot of time, or it's a lot of money. But yeah.
Yeah. So I just charge a flat $1,000 an hour. In general, the reason I'm upping my rates. So next month I'm changing it from $1,000 an hour to $1,000 for 30 minutes, and then I'm just going to change a lot of my other auditing prices and things like that based on that. So essentially, the reason I've done it is because I did a document, and I think you've already had Matt as a guest, Matt Diggity. He has a template that tracks his hourly expenditure, which basically just means how many hours he puts into a specific income stream and how much money he'd get back out of it. He showed me it last year, at the start of last year, I think it was. And he would basically say that, hey, look, he's specifically trying to spend the most time on his YouTube channel, right? But that would make him like $19 an hour, literally. That's how much money he would be making ROI from putting it into his YouTube channel. If he would put the same amount of time into his agency, he would make $2,500 an hour, right? For the amount of time. So I always tried to then focus my business, like I think you're referencing as well, like the person that you referenced was talking about, as whatever is giving me the highest amount of hourly returns, right? Because essentially capital is what you really want at the end of the day for any business. And especially when you're kind of my age, right? Capital is the epitome of everything, right? You need it to invest because there's so many investment opportunities. It's ridiculous. There's literally just too many. It's kind of overwhelming, right? There's analysis paralysis because you don't know what to kind of put your money into. And so I just want to have as much capital as I can so that I can diversify even more and that I can have as much kind of revenue streams as possible. The one thing that I'm not really into is real estate, right? I have a holiday rental apartment in Cyprus, and then I paid off my grandma's mortgage, and that's it, right? I don't have any other physical real estate. So there's nothing really, I don't even have real estate worth, $250K or something, which is crazy considering all of my online portfolio is easily worth, most of that individually, right? So I want to try and make sure that I am diversified even more in the future. But I've done the maths to try and work out my hourly profitability. And it's really, really hard to work on your affiliate and CPA sites and get profitability of over $1,000 an hour, essentially. So I've done the calculations and putting in that time into consultancy, where it's an hour isn't actually an hour, it's about an hour and a half or an hour and 25 minutes because of the sales and the surrounding time to actually learn the document and all that kind of stuff. So realistically, you're charging around $1,000 for an hour and a half rather than for an hour. So there's all of that kind of stuff. I'm also moving it all to my own site, like I said, from Gumroad. I'm moving it all to my own store with my own storefront. I'm changing my pricing. I'm launching new products, new services, outsourcing some stuff, doing that kind of thing, just to make sure that that can grow. And as you said about 10xing it, again, I also do believe that. Like, if I focused on my consultancy, I could probably 10x it. But again, I would be doing so much hours, and it would be risky because I would be having all of these clients and stuff, and it would lead to burnout. It would be risky. It would have all of these additional issues that I have a personal problem with doing. So again, I just like diversification, like I think you do as well. And I'm trying to push more diversification, not less, right? But I am putting more focus on my training side because, again, the consultancy and audits are making good money, and courses and ebooks would make more. But I spent $20K last month on my new training site, right? So that would have been more money last month, but I spent so much on this site and things. Once that's live, I think we can probably take that business from averaging like 30 to 40K a month to averaging over 100K a month, right? And that's just the kind of aim. A lot of people have said if you really pushed ads, you did emails, you did YouTube videos, you did like Alex Hormozy style promotions and stuff, right? If you did all of that, I could probably get the consultancy and courses and ebook business to like 500K a month, right? Which would be massive in terms of capital because it's like 80 to 90% margins. But at the end of the day, again, it's putting a lot of pressure on one business, putting too much focus. And I have ADHD, so I kind of inherently get bored of things. Like I like bouncing to different shit all the time, right? And so I don't like having to like do just one thing all the time for weeks at a time.
Got it. I think, yeah, you might be onto something with the, I personally think the Alex Hormozy playbook is pretty strong. We had a guest on, like Tom, like my good friend Tom. Dude, he does like 7 figures in course sales every month. It's wild. I mean, if you focus on it, that could be something you could look into. Like
exactly.
Course sales, because it's high margins, right? Crazy high margins.
Yeah.
You just do it once. I think you go through it once and then you sell it.
Yeah, I think Brian Dean did $6 million with his SEO that ranks or something, with the first version of it as well. So it wasn't even this. I think the second version did even more. So that's a kind of perfect example that even in the SEO scene, which is fairly small in comparison to a lot of the course kind of scene, right? If you compare it to like FBA courses, it's tiny, right? It still shows that there's massive amounts of opportunities for it. I also like the fact that if you do courses, especially kind of the beginner level stuff, you get to control the narrative for that person's journey into SEO, and they kind of see you as their person, right, for SEO. So they see you as the influencer in their SEO circle, and thus, if you say anything in the next 10 years of their SEO career, they inherently believe it and follow it. And so I think that's massively powerful, and it always has been for kind of the last few years of my career. And it's led to a lifetime value of individual training clients and individual training and customers being worth way more than they ever would have been if I'd just been selling one thing or I'd just been selling this or that, right? So, yeah.
How are you bringing people to your courses? Is it just through Twitter?
Twitter, LinkedIn. So most of my sales come from my email list. Obviously from my like God of SEO blog and then my Charles Floate blog and my Gumroad and my landing pages, ebooks, all that kind of stuff. Over the years, I've amassed about 80,000 email subscribers. That's not active, anywhere near active, right? It's probably like 20K, 25K active. But the list itself is like 80K. And obviously then I can feed that into like retargeting and that kind of stuff as well. But about 50% of the revenue itself comes from email. Then Twitter's the second biggest thing. I think last year I made like 52K, 53K just on Twitter, referring people to my courses and ebooks. Then I think it's other socials, so like Facebook, LinkedIn, generally together. YouTube is quite high. YouTube's like 20K a year or something like that. But again, I upload like a video every 3 months or every 2 months or something like that to YouTube. So it's not that much. And then I just get other stuff, so like word of mouth really big, referrals, people just giving it to them. I have a couple of affiliates that make like 10K, 20K a year or so on top as well. So it's just quite, again, diversifying the streams of traffic sources as well.
Gotcha. One thing I'm like looking into right now, and I have started to do already, is diversifying from Google. So everything you mentioned, all your revenue streams you mentioned are pretty Google heavy, right? It depends on Google being the number one search engine in the world for it to be continue on. Let's say like Google disappears tomorrow. Does that mean it would mean pretty much like all of our revenue is gone, right? Like all three of us, pretty much.
So
almost.
So I'm actually quite stable in the fact that I could fucking set everything in SEO on fire tomorrow, and I'd probably still be a millionaire. Just because I've got my family business to kind of rely on. So I own about 20% of my family business. That will be worth probably by the end of this year, maybe £100 million or something. So it's massively valuable and things. And we do wholesale and retail and e-com, and we do custom bespoke stuff as well. So we have 2 factories in the UK that manufacture handmade British furniture and stuff. So we sell it both wholesale. We do millions in e-com every year. That kind of stuff. So I manage all the e-com side of that, and a lot of that is still Google. But I also do Amazon SEO. I try and like manipulate Wayfair's algorithm because we go on Wayfair. There's lots of different other stuff. We used to eBay, but eBay's just turned into a shit show, and there's so many like chargebacks and fraud and stuff like that on there that it's just not worth it anymore. And then mixed with the chargebacks and fraud, you also got to do the ratings and that kind of stuff as well, so which is even harder. And when you're doing big ticket items on eBay, it's just a nightmare. So we got rid of that. And then last year, at the start of last year, we stopped doing Amazon FBA because Amazon contacted us directly, if I can even say that word, and got us to be a direct supplier. So we now supply Amazon directly with originals. So it's called Amazon Originals. We're just a contracted direct supplier for them. So they send us designs and we make the stuff and send it to their factories. So we then kind of, previously under FBA, we had to like pay for the warehousing
storage,
of our products. We had to pay for, it's all sorts of stuff on top of it, right? Now we just sell them the stuff and they try and pay us as little as possible. That's basically what it seems to be the case now. But the volume is really, really high, right? So we're moving like between 1,000 and 3,000 units a month of like sofas and chairs and armchairs and things like that. So you can imagine what the volumes are in relation to that. I think in the last week of December, we shipped like £500,000 of stock to Amazon directly.
That's amazing. What are the margins when you sell to Amazon? Because surely they cut you razor thin because they shop around, right, in the UK?
Yeah. So in the UK, it's actually really difficult to get. So specifically over COVID and because of Brexit and everything else, it's actually really difficult. So we actually kind of have somewhat of a monopoly, especially in our local area at least, for manufacturing furniture, basically. Because I think we have something like, I can't actually remember the exact figure, but we have like 325 employees or something in the UK. So we just manufacture, so actually during COVID, right, I kind of helped a lot with the lockdown side of things. So in the UK, they just locked down motherfucking everything got locked down, right? I think the same happened in Oz, right? Everything just got locked down. It was like a week's notice. The government were really shit about communicating anything to anybody. And then we started to pay our staff 80% of the salary anyway, right? Because of furlough. So when we shut down, there was certain guidelines that the government gave. So if your factory, like per 100 square meters or something, you could have one employee in the factory or something. It was really stupid guidelines like that. And bear in mind, 100 square meters is a very large size of factory, right? I think our factory is only like 400 or 500 square meters on the first factory, right? So we could have like 4 people in there, maybe 5. So once I knew that, right? Once I knew that, I told my mom, because I was in Thailand, my mom and my stepdad, who are the other 2 owners, and my granddad owns a bit of it as well, were based in the UK. I told them, go around the factory, note down every serial number and every brand for every piece of machinery in the entire factory. Send me the Excel document with all of the notes that you made for every piece of machinery. And I went and contacted all of the brands for every piece of machinery, gave them a serial number, and asked if they have remote operation software for the piece of machinery, right? And so about 50 to 60% of the machinery that we had in the factory, we could remote operate. And so that we could send the operators home, train them on a laptop, which was a nightmare in itself to train factory workers how to use like remote operation software, right? And bear in mind, I didn't realize this, right? Like a percentage of the population is still illiterate, right? So some of these guys that I'm having to train can't read legitimately, right? They can't actually read. So like I had to try and train them like how to use stuff,
Wait, really?
how to type.
What the fuck?
Dude, it's fucking crazy, right? Like it's actually wild. But bear in mind, these are people that work in a factory. So it's not like any sort of, technical landscape. I put an iPad in their hands and they're looking at me like I've just given them the fucking holy grail or some shit. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing at the kind of levels of stuff, right? But obviously, once you've gotten past that kind of heap, you can reopen the factory. You can stick a person in who just moves stuff between machinery. And we still actually stayed open during around 8 months of lockdowns. So whilst all of our competitors had to stay closed, we actually had their order books just going up and up and up, right? To the point where they were way over and they would never be able to deliver what they had signed up to deliver. We were still in operation, so we could still manufacture all of that stuff, and we still operated and still manufacture all that stuff. So it allowed us, even though we were at a way lower capacity than what we were at previously, it allowed us to still stay up to date with that order book. We didn't overflow, we didn't lose cash, we didn't lose people, any of that. So we were still able to stay open and still able to make money, even though a lot of our competitors weren't. Mixed with the fact that they were also going through COVID, mixed with the fact that they were going through Brexit as well as COVID, right? It just meant that a lot of them went bust. So a lot of companies that had been our competitors and that we've been open for like 10 years, they've been open for 100 years, 150 years, right? And they just went out of business. There's a perfect example was a company called Ultra Europe. They had 3,000 people in the UK, and they've been open for 180 years, and they went out of business about 2 years ago because of it. But obviously, out of 3,000 people, it meant that they were about 5 to 10 miles up the road from us. It meant that we had the pick of the litter of like their best employees for that, and we got to pay them about 10-20% cheaper than they were on previously. Obviously, we allowed them to do a work back program so that they could essentially earn their salary and more than they were earning previously if they put in the amount of productivity that they were doing previously. So it allowed us to still stay open when a lot of our competitors were closed and pick up a lot of our competitors' best employees as well at the same time.
Sick. Interesting. How has it been with the inflation? Because raw materials are up like significantly, right? Isn't it like up 150%? Because I actually looked into manufacturing in the UK. It doesn't even make sense. I don't know how you make the numbers work. Is it like, do you buy it semi-constructed in China and then import it and then finish it in the UK? Or is it from scratch in the UK?
So we make everything's from scratch. So Brexit and the war in Ukraine really screwed us because most of our wood was coming from Russia and Serbia, and even the Serbian wood was like 50% technically Russian anyway. So when that all happened and the sanctions were in place, we had to cut any Russian wood out. So we had about 20% of the wood that we could previously use, right? So that was all the Serbian stuff. So we were like, there's no point in even getting 20% of what we were doing. We just need a new source. And the mix of Brexit, any of the EU sources meant we had to pay a tariff on the imports, right? So we would be immediately uncompetitive to anybody inside of the EU. And then bear in mind, a few of our companies are in Germany and things, right? So we're buying for a wholesale site. So we're buying stuff, importing from the EU, paying a tariff on that. And then when we're selling it to the EU, we're paying an export tariff as well. So we get double tariff on that kind of stuff. So yeah, we would have got screwed. But we change it up. So the first thing that we did was we bought a sustainably managed forest in Wales and built our own wood mill so that we had our own sustainably managed wood and forest and things inside of the UK, so we didn't have to pay tariffs or anything, and that we could then process all and make our own frames and that kind of stuff for the sofas and for the furniture. Then what we did was we sourced a different foam. So previously we were getting all of our foam from China, but that went 3 to 5x more expensive, plus the shipping container costs, which went from like 2K to 10K. So that was just ridiculous. So I managed to find an alternative source of like hemp foam. So it's foam but made from hemp, right, in the UK. And so we used that instead. And it's actually a lot stronger and more versatile material, and it's more in line with EU and UK regulations. So it's actually better than it was previously. It's cheaper than it is now of buying from China, right? It might be cheaper in like a year or two when the logistics go down to buy from China again, but it would still make more sense that our product is higher quality and it's quicker to get this stuff, right? If we immediately need a ton of foam, we can go get it tomorrow rather than having to wait 6 weeks for a container to come over from China, right? So it's one of those. So we just implemented all of this stuff to make sure that we were kind of protected versus Brexit, COVID, and the war in the Ukraine, right? So that's made a lot of businesses in the UK got hit by triple whammies in the last 3 years, and it's not surprising that a lot of them went out of business. Mix in with the fact as well that there's like labour shortages, the government's fucking useless and just like obliterating any sense of business that there is. They're changing prime ministers every 3 months and stuff. Like, it's just ridiculous. So it's really difficult to have a stable business in a country that has got so much instability, right? But hopefully, because of the history of the country, we've got stability to look forward to in the next hundreds of years or whatever that the country has had previously, right? So it's always kind of a worthwhile investment in our opinion.
Yo, I don't know, because like, let me give a bit more background. Like, for the DTC brand Far and Away, we tried to find manufacturers in the UK. We couldn't find any affordable ones. So I actually looked into starting like a textiles mill in the UK. The numbers didn't even make sense. I don't know how you made it okay, because I went all over the UK. My friend has land in the UK, so rent would have been free. We would have gone into a JV.
There's one place you can do for fabric, and that's it. So there's one city in the entire UK, and it's Wolverhampton. So that's where we are. So that's the only place that you can do for textiles in the whole of the UK. And that the machinery is so expensive. I don't know how you are able to just spin them out without like. We don't buy machinery in the UK. So again, when Turkey went through its economic collapse last year, my stepdad flew over to Turkey and bought about £1 million of machinery that was worth about £5 million. So we do a lot of stuff like that. So we get a lot of machinery at auctions. We get a lot of machinery off of companies that went bust. We get a lot of machinery out of other countries that the machinery should be a lot more expensive in, and we'll just pay the shipping costs to get it over. And that 10k shipping cost for a piece of machinery that's 500k,
that's easy.
But £5 million here is nothing, right? So it's all about just doing all of these things that you have to. But again, if you were in China or if you were in India, or if you're in Vietnam, you wouldn't have to do all of this additional stuff, right? But it makes it better for in the future. And there's also, it allows us to market some of our products to Asia. So we sell a lot of our handmade UK furniture to millionaires in China and in Singapore and in Malaysia, places like that, because they love anything made in the UK, right? It's like the whole Rolls-Royce kind of effect of making things in the UK. And our number one seller to China, which I think is absolutely hideous, right, is a Union Jack sofa. So it's just a handmade sofa in the UK with the Union Jack, the UK flag on the fucking sofa. It's horrendous, right? But we ship like 1,000 of them to China every year. They go for between $5,000 to $10,000 a sofa, and it costs us about $200 to $300 to make it. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wait, $200-300 to make? Wait, how's that possible?
Yeah. £200 to £300 to make the sofa, and then we sell it retail for 5 to 10k, but we don't sell it, right? It's our seller in China sells it. Yeah.
Huh. $200-300 seems a crazy low, because that's the price in China.
So we're manufacturing thousands of units a month, right? So we've got our manufacturing costs fairly low at this point. We can, for example, if you wanted like an armchair, there's Lazy Boy is probably the biggest brand in the world. I don't know if you know them. They're massive, right? Their chairs, they're real leather recliner armchairs. We can make for under £200, and they sell them for about £2,000. So. You can see the kind of markups and margins, and they could probably make them cheaper than we can. So you can already see the amount of money that they're kind of making off this stuff, right? And that's also why a lot of people are like, they see these like mattress stores and like furniture stores and stuff, and like, they must be money laundering operations. And I'm like, no, the margins are just that crazy high that they make so much money, and that's why they've got these salesmen that are like sleazy mattress salesmen, you know, that like try and sell you on everything.
Interesting niche. Yeah. I mean, did you see how Made.com went bust? That was kind of crazy, no?
Yeah. It was.
Were they just drop shipping from China though?
So there's actually there's a competitor to them that have been doing amazingly well in the UK that are basically the exact same business model. So I don't really fully understand how they went bust. I'm assuming, right, that they must have gone bust through mismanagement and internal company issues and things like that. Because there's another company that I know called Furniture Box that just opened the second or third biggest warehouse in the UK. It's like 6 stories. And it's a warehouse, you know what I mean? It's fucking huge, this place. And they just opened recently. Like, they don't have that much traffic. They sell mostly on Amazon and Wayfair and eBay and stuff. So I think they do like £500,000 a month or something on their website, but their overall business does like 10 million a week or 10 million a month or something. So I'm not 100% sure how they went bust. Again, I think it's just mismanagement and stuff. And sometimes once you get that big kind of corporate level, there's just so much red tape and crap that there's no progression, and that eventually the company just burns out to competitors that are beating them across the board.
Yeah, Charles, I wanted to ask you as well, your recent video you sent out today on the Google updates. I want to get your thoughts on the recent updates and what you've seen, I guess, with changes in the SERPs, because obviously I think a lot of people on Twitter are saying their sites have been hit. I haven't seen that on mine, but maybe you can dive into a little bit of the insights there.
Yeah, so there was the issue with the updates, right, is that there was 2 at the same time. And that doesn't really, sorry, I'm losing my voice as well. That doesn't really normally happen. But it's and again, Google have always said that they said 2 things, right? Number one, they said they're not going to try and release updates close to major holidays. They released it on like a week before Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas. And they also said that they weren't going to try and release updates that are overlapping over each other. Again, they did the exact same thing. So it's quite difficult to truly tell what's hit a website, because even though the starting dates of these updates were about a week and a half apart, the actual impact of them, so when they actually took effect in the SERPs, were around the same time, which was around December 20th or December 22nd. And those were the dates specifically when it took place, but they were both overlapping, right? So it was quite difficult to differentiate if it was content or if it was links. In general, if you go on a site and you say, hey, look, you're on page and your content is amazing, then it's a bit more obvious that it might be the links that are causing the issue, right? But in some cases, it's not so obvious, and it makes for really difficult analysis work. And in certain instances, the updates overlap themselves. So, for example, with the helpful content and the spam brain update, they seemingly overlap in relation to trust signals. So there seems to be some baked into both algorithms in relation to trust signals, either on page or in link based, or both. And that has kind of led to confusion in my own testing and in other people's experimentation things, because I think similar signals were affected by both of the updates, which led to mixed results across the board, right, and kind of overlapping signal intersections. So
are they ever going to hit the parasites as well?
I don't know. So it's so number one, it's difficult to hit parasites anyway, because effectively you're going to hit high authority sites, and Google loves them, right? I don't know if you've seen John Mueller on Twitter saying, "Oh, what you want us to put a niche affiliate website over Forbes?" And everyone's like,
"Yeah,
yes, that's what we're asking for." So in my opinion, Google loves them, and they're not going away from that anytime soon. And again, it's something that no one in SEO seems to talk about, Google loving lawyers, right? Like, it's one of the things that Google loves to try and do is mitigate any responsibility and liability for themselves. And I think that's true for both AI in the future, where if you ask Google's chatbot if you have cancer because of these symptoms, it tells you that you've got cancer and you don't, right? That's probably a big fucking issue, you know, and it's going to leave you open to liability and all that kind of stuff. So I would make sure. If I was Google, I wouldn't implement anything similar to ChatGPT anytime soon, because lawyers wouldn't let me, and there'd be red taken away. And that would be the exact same for the other stuff as well. So in relation to this update and what it affected the most, generally it was trust signals, and that both on page and off page. It hit a lot of link-based stuff, so anything that was just unnatural link-based stuff. So, for example, I've been dealing with a consultancy client that decided he'd go and buy links from every link building agency that he wanted to test at the same time. so that he then had like 200 links, get posts and niche edits coming to a site that was a month old and things like that. And I'm like, well, your velocity is now screwed. Your site looks really unnatural. And there's no wonder why you just lost 90% of your traffic in the last update, is there? So there's stuff like that where it's just obvious stuff that you need to make your patterns seem more natural and less unnatural, right? And that's just how you'll survive. But in general, I think a lot of people got hit because of two factors, right? The number one factor is that their campaigns aren't cohesive. So they just do things rather than having a plan, right? So there's no set overall strategy. There's no set overall plan. They just do individual tasks. And it then leads to this whole mess of organization, a mess of a site, and it leads to unnatural patterns because it's just randomized kind of work here and there, right? It doesn't look very natural and very consistent across the board. And Google loves consistency. That's the thing, right? This is why a lot of AI and programmatic builds, they work because the sites are consistent and they're really easy and efficient for Google to crawl and index, right? So that's one of the major reasons that they work in the first place. Specifically in relation to these updates, though, I think it's more like I said, trust signal hits, and then specific kind of link types, and then specific people are glossing over certain things. So entity stacking and brand building and all of that kind of stuff. So things like social profiles, your reference sites like Zoom Info and Crunchbase and all those kind of sites, Wikipedia, for example. Any of those links, if you can get those, and then you're going to be infinitely more trusted in Google's eyes than not having any of them, right? And there's been a lot of sites, especially in the YMYL niche, that I've been analyzing and auditing that have been hit specifically because they don't have any base layer of foundation or entity or anything. So if you go and do more about this site in Google search, and it will specifically tell you a lot of things. It will say Google couldn't find any references or any information on reference sites for this site, right? That's a really clear indicator that you should go and build your entity stacking. There's lots of other tips that Google will actually tell you about your site in the stuff that people just look over. But in general, the updates hit people that lacked cohesion or were too obvious with a lot of stuff in general.
Was it? Did you mention in that video as well something about niche edits being hit specifically?
Yeah. So in general, I think it's just easy because Google has a comparative cache. So essentially, Google's cache is 2 years old, right? And all it needs to do is compare the cache of the old page to the cache of the new page, which is very efficient to do, bear in mind, because the cache of the old document, they can just compare the code. They don't need to compare the rendered version. And if the code obviously has then got an edited link in after the fact, then it can cause issues. From my own testing, it's more so when people are heavily reliant on that specific link type individually. So it's when 80% of your links are niche edits. That's, again, an unnatural link sign because you've got all of these stuff, you've got all these pages, but you've got comparative caches that didn't have the links before, and that you have no new pages or new sites or things like that for these things. So 100%, they haven't killed them, they haven't devalued them, they haven't done anything like that. It's just for people who have created unnatural amounts of them and have created unnatural patterns and things. But specifically, it was different this time because even my high authority edits tended to get hit. So for example, I can get niche edits on Namecheap.com on their blog, or G2.com or Notion's blog, or whatever, any of those kind of massive text SaaS startups, right? And they're not really that expensive. Even those edits that I had links on, those kind of massive DI92, DI93 sites, right? Even those kind of edits seemingly got hit this time, which is different from all the times previously because it would only be the low authority stuff that got hit before. That being said, it was still, in general, right? Orphan links got hit even harder. So guest posts that don't have any internal links, don't have any social signals, don't have any backlinks, anything like that, they just got devalued completely. So it doesn't seem to me, in previous updates as well, a lot of the links would be turned toxic, or they would effectively penalize your site, right? They would devalue your site and they would derank your site, not devalue, they would derank your site. Now they're just devaluing the links. So they're not going to be passing any value that they were previously, they're just devalued. So a lot of people have dropped because all these links that were previously powering their site now don't pass the value that they once were.
Can't you just solve this issue by building tier 2s?
Orphan stuff, effectively tier 2s In 90% of cases, yes, but there's still the 10% where Google will want the internal link as a check, or want other on-page signals as the check mark, basically. And bear in mind, I think the system effectively has like flags and triggers. So the more risky a link looks, the more likely it is to hit certain flags and triggers. And the more flags and triggers that you hit, the more likely that link is to get devalued or potentially turned toxic, right?
Interesting. Yeah, I think one tactic that I've like one link building tactic I've utilized throughout the years that has yet to be hit are edits still work, but I think it's more like on what you just spoke on, the internal linking. So if there's a page on a site that actually gets search traffic, I feel like those links actually have a massive impact on ranking. So you take a site that maybe ranks for, let's say, best VPN, and you link out to one of your pages that are also trying to rank for best VPN. That one link would have such a huge impact on the ranking of the new page. That's what I personally see, and that probably speaks on like what you just mentioned, actually, because those pages can't rank if there's no internal links, right? Yeah.
No, yeah, 100%. And also, I think that the fact that Google's ranked them, that Google trusts the pages, right? So that they kind of skipped over those flags and triggers and stuff because Google automatically trusts the page. And a lot of the time when I try to do niche edit link building, I'll prioritize pages that are number one for keywords over more authoritative pages, right? So I'll just try and find pages that are ranking number one for stuff, because then Google is obviously trusting that page because they're number one for keywords, right? And so a lot of the time, even if it's not, like you said, exact match where it's best VPN to best VPN, if it's, my VPN guide to best VPN, it's still very much so a competitor-oriented link. And I called that style of link building the better version of RSOS, which I don't know if you know RSOS. It's from OMG Machines, Reverse SQL Swim. It would basically be a style of link building where they would do guest posts on sites, and they would do the exact topic. So they would do like best VPN in the guest post, and that would be the content of the guest post. They would link it to the best VPN page. And so that would be doing Reverse SQL Swim.
Currently.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I'm doing this thing.
Yeah, it's a very, very old tactic from OMG Machines. I'm pretty sure they've been using it for like the last 10 years or so. But that's basically the niche edit version of that. And I prefer the niche edit version to the guest post version, right? A lot of the time, you can create a guest post on a site that is topically new to that site. And as such, then the guest post is devalued because you don't have the internal links, you don't have the topical authority, you don't have all of this stuff contributing to that guest post. And so a lot of the time, I just like creating guest posts that are more in line with the topical content of the site because the links tend to pass better value.
Yeah, I think only thing is I've noticed getting these niche edits on posts with traffic, they cost way more. They're like 10x sometimes. It's pretty crazy.
I got quoted one for like a DR52 site the other day. They wanted $1,500 for a niche edit on a DR52 site. It was in the furniture niche, and it was like some random page. The page was like 300 traffic or something. But yeah, they wanted. I obviously didn't pay it. I think I offered them $150 for it, but I don't think they took it.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Might have to restart that strategy again and see what happens. All right. Yeah. I think we just ran over time. Charles, thanks a lot for hopping on today, man. We didn't go over all the topics we wanted to. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so Twitter is probably the best place. Then you've got my YouTube channel. So just at Charles_SEO for Twitter. My YouTube channel is Charles Floate. And then you can also find my blog, charlesfloate.com, even though I don't blog. I blog like one post a year or something. And then I have email list. My Gumroad is charlesfloate.gumroad.com. And hopefully that will be moving to charlesfloatetraining.com very soon.
Perfect, man. One last shout out. Is there any other people in SEO on Twitter that you think our audience should follow? Like any good follows?
There's a lot of people on Twitter, and I'm going to get in trouble for like not shouting out certain people if I start shouting out people.
No, man. Dude, why not?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like people specifically. I really like Barrett O'Neill. I don't know if you know him. He's got some really good stuff. He's approached 100,000 followers at the moment. He produced a lot of good SEO marketing related things. Then there's lots of other just individual people. If you're in the Spanish market, there's a really good SEO called Otto, who I've been following, who creates really good Spanish SEO threads. I think it's Otto Gonzalez or something for a second name. And then there's a lot of just in general, like individual people that share good tips and things. Gail Breton from Authority Hacker has been doing a lot of stuff, like you said earlier. He's been sharing quite a lot of threads and stuff recently. I tried to get him on Twitter last year, and he's gotten it more this year, but I tried to poke him last year to try and do the same thing. And then there's a couple other people and stuff, but in general, it's more just individual, right? It's people just share gold every so often rather than being really consistent on Twitter, which is that's what I try to be, right? I try to be like consistently sharing SEO stuff every day rather than just sharing like a thread once a week or once a month or something. And also I normally have something to share every day because I'm doing something every day for the SEO. And I've got some new insight or some new overview or some new analysis of things.
Sick. Yeah, well, thanks for that. And thanks for coming on. Guys, if you're listening now, if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star review. None of you guys have done it yet. That's ridiculous. There's so many views on YouTube, and half of you guys are on Apple. So I don't know what you guys are doing. Stop. All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.